Katie and I got a new camera, and I have spent the last week or so going around in Tokyo and teaching myself how to use this, because until about 2 weeks ago when I started researching getting this camera, I had no idea what an f-stop was or how it played into shutter speeds and how ISOs worked and all that. So I really had to like do some research and like teach myself how to actually use a camera, because for the years and years and years we've been shooting on little cameras like this. This is a little Sony HX90V, and the one that's filming this right now is a 50V, and we had a 30V before that, and they're wonderful little pocket cameras, but they do have their limitations. This one doesn't have any way to plug in an external mic, and its internal audio is bad, and that's really what started pushing me towards getting something that would have a mic input, which this has. And then I started going down the rabbit hole and finding out how different lenses and stuff are gonna give me wider shots and getting better low light shots, and all these different things started like building me up. I'm like, okay, and I was looking at test footage that other people were shooting. I was like, it looks a lot better. So here we are, and I'm super excited to see what I'm able to do with this and just improve the video series that we've been making for years. So I've been out and teaching myself how to shoot, and teaching myself how to use this equipment, and seeing what kinds of things that I'm going to be capable of doing. And I wanted to just put this little video together once I realized all this footage that I have, and share it with people in case they're curious about just how our production stuff goes, or if you're curious about this camera specifically in comparison to one of these Sony cameras, because the first set of clips that I'm going to roll here is going to be just both of them running at the same time, shooting my face walking down a dark street, and you'll see how much better this does over this. Other notes, at the beginning of these clips, I'm going to be using this mostly in auto mode, and as time goes on, I start playing with the manual mode a little bit and trying to teach myself how that works and stuff. And you're going to see clips that are like focus changes and stuff, and there's a couple of time-lapse shots in here, and just going through the features and stuff of this. And also of note, I'm not using this mic at all in the video series, in this video, because the one fatal flaw of this is that when you flip the screen up, it gets blocked by this. So I have some Velcro on order that's gonna mount the mic on the side, but until then I've just been shooting with the internal microphones. So this is not a representation of this mic at all. This is a representation of what you get when it comes to you in the box. And I do have 4 different lenses that I'll mention in it, and I try to kind of explain like which lens I'm using and stuff like that. So hopefully it's kind of technically informative if that's what you're into. Shots of Tokyo and stuff if you're into that, or if you're just into seeing what style or what look our videos are going to have in the future, then this might also be interesting for you. I think that covers everything that I needed to say in this intro video. So I'm going to go ahead and just start rolling some of the footage, and there's voiceovers and stuff kind of explaining what I was looking for in most of the shots, and so that you kind of know, oh, okay, he's working on the focus there, he's working on low light or whatever. Also, a lot of these shots are done in nighttime, and the reason is because it gets dark really early in Japan. So I have been like working on things in the house during the daylight, and when I go out, it's dark. Towards the end of the video, I went out this afternoon actually and shot some stuff in the light so that we could see how the things behaved in the light, and I learned that, wow, it's a totally different world when the sun is up, like it's through a camera lens. So yeah, okay, I think that's it. All right, we got 2 cameras going basically at the same time, looking at basically the same thing. I'm gonna walk down the street and see how the low light and the focus works. You can see the much wider shot on the Canon, and the light is much better looking too. I wonder if it has the ISO cranked really high. But yeah, look at how much more exposure I'm getting on that, even if it's a little noisy. And I'm gonna wiggle them back and forth a little bit, see how we get with image stabilization. And that looks all right. I look crazy right now walking on the street like this, by the way. And what else have we got to worry about here? So I'm trying to look for something really bright. So if I spin this around, like all of that light on my face, that really helps the Sony a lot. It's almost overexposed on the Canon now. If I turn around like this, you lose me almost completely in the Sony, but in the Canon, it's still workable. Both of the cameras are on complete auto right now, by the way. I'm gonna start playing with things on the Canon a little bit so I could control some of that like overexposure that was going on. And I don't have the mic on either of them either. I am shooting with a really, really wide. He was looking at me like I was nuts. A really, really wide lens on the Canon right now, which is why you've got so much more like visualness popping, like more background and stuff, but probably gets a little bit fisheye in the edges. It's not too bad. I'm trying to find like a straight line right there on the red. It's pretty straight. It's a little fisheye, but it's not terrible. So the autofocus is working really awesome on the Canon. And this was kind of the low light test I wanted to do. So there you have it. Very cool. I'm gonna put a pop here at the end so it's easy to line these up. There we go. Here I'm just walking around Akihabara getting some establishment B-roll shots that I would normally have, playing with the focus pole back and forth there, and just walking down kind of a dark street and testing the image stabilization and just kind of getting a feel for how the camera is going to react to certain types of motions and things. Another shot where I'm just like, you know, doing a train shot arriving with a tiny bit of a pan there. You can see the flicker though, I fixed that later. Alright, I put a lens on that is a little less wide but slightly brighter, and I'm in a pretty dark area now. And I'm just going to shoot some random footage and to see how it all comes out. To see how the motion looks and things like that. I don't really have much nailed down as far as like how to use the camera or anything. So most of this is just going to be flying on auto. Playing with the 15mm lens, you can see it's super dark here, but it was really dark in person. Just again, seeing how it handles that super duper low light. Another low light shot where the light was changing a whole bunch. I thought that would be interesting to see if the camera dealt with that okay. I'm playing with the focus pole here with the pretzel box where it bounced off of the magazine rack. And here I was just, I don't know why I let this in, I just like it. Okay, so this is an example of a shot that is too dark to be going at the proper frame rate that I need it to go at. So the shutter speed is at 125, and since I'm shooting at 60 frames a second, that's like accurate. So what I'm gonna do is, it's gonna get bright when the car drives by, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna crank back the shutter speed to slow it down, but it won't keep me with smooth motion. So like right now my hand is okay. And I will turn this back, and you can see it getting brighter. It looks much more appealing, like as far as lightness goes. But now if I move my hand, there should be a little bit of blur. I can exaggerate it a little bit by dragging back the speed a little more. Now you can see a lot of blur. So that's compensating for not having enough light going in. So I guess sometimes you just gotta deal with losing a little bit of motion smoothness in order to make it so you can actually see the person. Let's play this. Let's play with this again. So that's me, and then boop. It's having trouble focusing on how bright that is. Doesn't like that. I'll have to learn what its limitations are. But so far, like the motion track, what's it called? Focus, autofocus follows really well as long as the light isn't really bad. Like I'm staying all the way to the edge of the frame there with my face locked in. See if it'll grab that now. Yeah, there we go. It pulled me out of focus and put those words in focus. I'll come back. That's just touch to focus. That's so cool. It's having trouble now. There we go. It didn't like that my face was at the edge of the frame, I think. So it has trouble with that, but I think all cameras do, or at least cameras that I can afford. Oh, by the way, I've got a lens coming that's got a much better low light performance. So hopefully in these, I mean it's dark right now, so hopefully in these situations I'll be able to keep the decent motion with decent light. This is kind of a slippery slope. I fallen down. Camera shit's expensive. My 22mm fixed lens came in, and this is the first shot I made. Look at that beautiful blurry background. I'm walking through the same area now, and I have my new lens. It actually came today, so this is the first time I've used it. And like I said, I'm walking through the same area that I was walking through last night, where it's pretty damn dark. and I have the shutter speed quite a bit higher than I had last night, so you can see there's not a lot of blur there, but you can still see me pretty well. So this new lens having a better f-stop, goes to 2, is helping quite a bit, but as you can see, you lost me there. So I can crank that back even more. And now we're getting into like dangerous territory with blur, but you can still see me. But the lens has got quite a bit better low light performance, and I'm starting to learn how to use the camera. And I'm gonna go out tonight and play with this lens a little bit and see what kind of like low light magic I can pull off with it. Of note, you can probably also see that you can't see so much behind me right now because the focal length, I think is the right word for this, isn't as wide. So you can't, I don't know if I've used the right words or not, but it's a 22mm lens instead of the 11, which is my best one. So you have to like a little bit of a compromise there. What do you want? You want a nice wide shot? You want decent low light, etc., etc. And I'm starting to learn all these little things. I turned the knob the wrong way. There we go. You can really notice that though. Ooh, that's really bad. I turned it way too far. This is fun. Sorry if I've just been staring at the screen instead of the lens. It's probably kind of disconnecting to watch. Oh, something else with this lens that needs to be kept in mind is it also doesn't have image stabilization, which is the one thing I don't like about it. So when I'm walking like this, you're probably going to see some jitter and stuff, and then if I have the shutter speed down, that makes it even worse probably. I could turn on image stabilization in the camera body, but it's not very good. I've seen like people have done demos with it and stuff, and it's a digital image stabilization, and it makes the edges of the screen like really, really watery and wobbly looking, which is like really like off-putting. So I'm gonna have to see when I look at this footage later how bad the shake is, and if it's too bad, then maybe I'll have to just deal with having it watery if I'm gonna be using this lens in this environment. And if it's tolerable, then I'll just roll with it. So just another note. At this point, I still didn't know how to get rid of the flicker, but I figure it out later. But in the meantime, look at that. We do a lot of videos about food, so I wanted to go and actually shoot like some restaurant stuff. And I used a couple of different lenses here to try to get like different perspectives and different widths of shot. And just motion and just seeing how it was going to act inside of like a restaurant's real lighting, like that type of thing that I'm actually going to be shooting in a lot. And I think these shots actually came out really good for my first go at shooting with this type of equipment. Side note, this gyoza is amazingly good. This is a fairly low light shot, and just walking on the street, kind of seeing how the lack of image stabilization is going to work. It doesn't look too bad, but I can see my footsteps in the camera, I think. It's hard to tell when you're actually walking. But at least the lighting looks pretty good. Get a little bit of the refresh rate of those lights screwing with it though. And I noticed that in a lot of other shots that I got yesterday. I wonder how I can fix that. Changing shutter speed. There we go. That looks a lot better. So I actually dropped the shutter speed down and it killed that. That's just going to be a thing that, like, as you're walking around though, it's going to change all the time. Yeah, either direction, and it screws with it. About 1/100th, and it kills it out. It's funny. Just have to keep an eye on that. I made a shot here last night, and I was hoping to get the same shot to compare with this different lens, but the light is on. However, I'm still getting the shot because check out that wall art. I did this shot last night as well, and this time it should probably have better bokeh in the background. And now I'm going to hit this, and I'm going to see if I can focus on that magazine rack. Boop. That is so cool. It really blurs it out on this lens a lot. Looks nice. This is another shot where the lights are flickering a bit. If I drop it down to 100, boop, it's fixed. The fluorescent lights all flicker at this rate. It's super duper dark here, and this is going to be motion. So I've got the ISO cranked
but let's see if I can catch this. It's really close. Woo! That might be a pretty noisy looking shot, but I got the motion out of it.
Nothing special here, I just thought it would be kind of fun to shoot this shot. I was happy with how quickly it found focus with all the shiny bits. Here I was just playing with focus stuff, just seeing how much blur I could get out of the background with a 22mm lens. That got dangerously into obscure territory. I did not mean for that to happen. I was just looking for some place flat to sit my pokey. I'm really enjoying these focus pulls, just bouncing back and forth. It's really cool. Back to the sign. I just put the 11mm lens on and shot like a time-lapse thing that the camera can do. So it'll be really short, I think, but it's a cool proof of concept. Check out what this action does. These next few clips were shot without any image stabilization because I was using the 22mm fixed lens, which doesn't have any built-in image stabilization. And they came out okay, but they're a little bit shaky in a way that I would like to not have in the videos. Maybe I can fix that with my hand, maybe I can fix that by shooting someplace that's not so damn windy, or maybe I'm just gonna have to abandon it and use a different lens. They're definitely workable shots, but I think they could be better if there's been some image stabilization included.
How do you shoot a TV like this without screwing up how the motion looks? It's like if I crank my shutter speed up, it just looks like garbage. Like that's where it should be. And that's nice motion. But if I crank it back to where you almost can't see the scan lines, it just looks like garbage.
Just a couple of more shots of exterior buildings, things I would be shooting for a normal video series.
This is kind of interesting. It's like one of the only yatai I've ever seen in Tokyo, and it's like a little ramen joint that this guy sets up at nighttime, and it's kind of not in the normal place where there'd be a lot of people. It's just like between where we live in Ikebukuro. Like you just have to kind of know it's here. It's not like a thing where there's a bunch of them.
We should make a video about that guy. I've eaten there and it's not really very good. But it's just so unique because of like what it is and where it's at. I don't know how he has a permit to like be that dude. That got really dark. The camera was extremely still for this shot because I wanted the motion of the cars to be the interesting part of the shot. The clip that comes up after it is got more motion in it, but I still wanted to have the cars be like the focal point of what the action was. This is a super dark little area, but it's a little mosque down the street from our house. I'm working on getting some really up-close shots of food in our videos because I've been inspired by Japanese television. They get down to like the molecular level on food to show you what they're going to be eating. And I'm also playing with some different types of motion you're seeing right there, just to, you know, give a different type of perspective. This is another time-lapse that I shot, and this is actually the limit on the length of the time-lapse that the camera will create. I finally have had a chance to actually go outside and shoot during the daytime and play with just a few shots. I don't have a lot of time today, but I thought I would just walk around the park a little bit and shoot a few like types of like little establishment shots that I would be shooting if I was out shooting a video with Katie or whatever, just to kind of get an idea of how things are going to look and starting to understand even more how the camera is going to behave in a like not completely dark lighting situation, which is what almost everything else I've been shooting with it is, because man, it gets dark in Japan at like 4:30 in the afternoon, so unless you leave out in the morning, like you're gonna miss out on shooting in the daytime during the winter anyways, which is what we're heading into. So yeah, gonna just, you know, do some of those shots. Here's a little gate, and I'm going to do like a walking shot. This is using the 11mm lens with image stabilization in the lens on. And I think based on what I'm seeing on the screen right now, this looks not too bad. It seems fairly smooth. I'm not trying super hard to keep it steady. And it looks all right. See what it does with the light in here. It's not pulling up too much there. I'm going to click the focus button and see
It didn't pull too much light out of that, but again, that could just be that this lens isn't made for dark areas. Still looks acceptable though, I think. Something that I've noticed about this screen is that when I'm looking at the shots when I'm shooting, it seems much brighter than what it is when it actually goes into the computer. Like the screen on the camera is very bright, which is good for seeing it in bright situations like when the sun is out. But it's making me think that shots that look super acceptable and okay are not quite as bright in the end as what I'm thinking. So I gotta like calibrate my brain for that. And that's something that I had similar things with Sony cameras we used to shoot with. Like, it wasn't an exact representation what you saw on the screen during the recording process based on what gets output, but you just sort of like learn it. Not a big deal. But like, I think some of the shots in this video have been really a lot darker than I thought they were. But I mean, I was shooting in like worst case scenario situations, so I'm not necessarily like torn up about it or anything, but I just need to keep that in mind. The one glaring downside of this camera compared to my Sony that I've been carrying for years is the zoom isn't that great. And even though when I got this, they included this lens, which was like a freebie actually, it was a really good deal. And it is a 55-200. So that's a decent zoom, but compared to the 30x zoom that came on my little Sony before, it's kind of not that great. And I'll roll this footage here and it'll show you I'm zooming across this park, and you'll see the difference in how tight I can get on the Sony compared to what I can get just even on that 200mm zoom lens. And it's kind of a bummer, but the zooming motion is much smoother because I can do it manually rather than electronically that I have to do it with the Sony. And it's also not that big of a deal because the Sony is so small. Like, hold on, I'll show you. The Sony is so tiny that I'm just gonna keep it in my bag, so if there's ever a time where I need to have that tight zoom, or there's a problem with this camera or something, I can just pull the Sony out and I can still get those same shots. So it's not gonna be that big of a deal, but it is impressive they can get that hella zoom out of that Sony in that tiny little package.
I love this wide angle lens that I can get this huge wide shot without getting too far back.
So this is my 11mm lens, and I've got the f-stop at the low, so it'll go at 4, and I just stuck the ISO at 100. So I'm gonna play with the shutter speed to see what I gotta do to get blue sky. So right now it's at 1/125, which is where it should be for 60 frames a second that I'm shooting at now. And I'm gonna bring this down, and it's now starting to pull the blue sky out at 1/640. But if I turn around and I put that on my face, actually it's not too bad. So shooting, it's like so much different shooting in the daytime. Like I have to worry about the exact opposite. But I guess I'm looking okay, and you can still see some of the blue in the back. But I don't know if I should be raising the shutter speed or, well, that's as low as the ISO will go, and that's as low as the f-stop will go. So I guess that's the only thing I can do, I guess. So that's what it is, I guess. I'm gonna crank it back even further. Yeah, you're starting to get more sky, you know, to a certain degree, but losing everything down here. So if I want to bring this back, I gotta crank this shutter speed back. That's like at 1/500, 1/400. This is the fixed 22mm lens out in the sunlight, and again, it's like it's really bright. I really have to crank things around in weird ways to get even like a decent shot. But look at how much background blur it's producing in the background, like compared to saying on the focus on my face. To me, that is that's pretty cool looking. I don't know if that's necessarily what we want to shoot with all the time, because we're going to be so interested in having like a background that you can look at and understand because of the type of content we produce. But this is kind of a cool effect. However, I'm walking fairly rough right now, and I can see some of the shake because this doesn't have image stabilization, and it's a bit of a bummer. For comparison, here's a shot with the 11mm lens, and you can see how much less blur there is in the background. You can actually see what's going on. And again, like for the type of content we shoot, a lot of people want to see what's going on in the background, so this is probably honestly a much better look. But maybe if I feel like a little bit artistic or whatever, I can pop that other lens on there. Here's the 11mm focused on the flower, and I'm gonna pop it back on that black car. That's pretty sweet. I just touch the screen and whoop, it just goes. Amazing. This is the same shot with the fixed 22 lens. See, I've got that flower in focus, and look how incredibly defocused the background is. It's really blurry, which is what you want in this case. I'm gonna go ahead and try to focus on that black car. It's a bit slower, but it pulled it. But that's a whole lot more focus to just pull through, I suppose. Maybe that's why it's slower. Ooh, there's a bee. Come on, focus. There we go, look at that. Hey, how cool is this shot? Amazing.
I met a kitty. By the way, all these voiceovers were done on the Rode microphone that's hooked into the new Canon, so this gives you an idea of what the voice will sound like. So thanks for everybody for watching. Bye, kitty.